then I'm gonna share my screen. And I'm gonna hopefully, I think I'll see. All right, well, if she gets, I'll see if she pops in, I believe. So I'm gonna start the recording. It's about 10 minutes. Some of you had asked for some more details of what the hatchery looked like, the actual makeup of pipes and tubes coming in and all that. So this is a little bit more of a technical view, but I figured why not? So I'm just going to record it.
Hi guys, thanks for having me back. I know you guys want a little more detail on our systems, in particular some of the plumbing. So there are a few things that I'd like to start off saying. PVC plumbing is super simple. So as long as you have something to cut the pipe and you have a plan in place, it's pretty easy to do yourself. Some tips that I would give are, to make sure that whatever you put together for, aquaculture water systems is to make sure that it can be disassembled, whether you're using unions or I don't know, but just make sure you can take it apart so you can clean it, because it'll make your life that much easier, and also it will extend the life of your plumbing system. You don't want any dead space or dead areas that can hold water, because that's where you're gonna run into bacterial problems and stuff like that. So everything that we've plumbed is designed to drain completely. We have a lot of what we call drops. So water is pumped in from the main tank here. We use a lot of these banjo fittings. So they're quick disconnects. So you just hook them up, lock them in, and then you can turn on your valve to fill your tank. So we have hooks on the end of this. You can control the flow with a valve. It's just a simple elbow hook. Fill your tanks, and then when you're done, you turn off your valve and you can disconnect everything and drain it. So this line will completely drain. This will be disconnected. You can run fresh water through it, clean it, and hang it up to dry. And that's part of keeping the hatchery, pretty clean and as sterile as you can. This is our broodstock system. It's pretty simple. These are 50-gallon tanks that we have. Things are kind of broken down right now, but I'll be able to try and give you an idea of how they work. So in this cage we have, or in this tank, we have a cage here that we've made out of mesh. And the idea is that the shellfish sit off of the bottom. So it's easy to take them in and out. And it's also easy to spray down the tank and clean all the debris. So the idea is here that we fill the tank with filtered seawater, or it can just be ambient, regular seawater. And we put the standpipe in place after, flushing out the bottom. Standpipe goes in. So essentially the water stays in place. Shellfish go around here. We usually hold about 30 shellfish per 50 gallons. Underneath this tank, we have a manifold that looks like this. So this is the bottom of the tank above it. So we have the capability to drain the tank using the standpipe, which I showed you right here. So you pull the standpipe. If this valve under the tank is open, everything will flow onto the floor and into the trough here, including the waste. Or we can shut this valve under the tank and open up this valve and attach a hose nozzle and a vinyl hose and drain it into a sieve in the event that shellfish might have spawned in the tank, or there's some reason, maybe you have smaller shellfish in there, you're doing something different than broodstock. We just like to be versatile and, have different options. So you can see everything's numbered because we assemble everything so that we can take it apart and clean it. Everything in the hatchery is like this, so it can be disassembled. Otherwise, it can be difficult to clean, to get your brush in tiny spaces. So we just wanted to make sure that we could take it apart, and it also makes it easier to repair as well. This is our feed system for one side of our broodstock room. We have two 250-liter cow walls here, and we pump algae over from the algae system into these cow walls, and then they are hooked to a mag drive pump under here. And this pump is hooked to a timer, which is not in place right now. And the timer goes off every 3 hours, and for about, I don't know, 1 or 2 minutes, depending. We try to do 50 liters per tank per day, I think is the goal. But anyways, the piping goes all around, but eventually comes in above each tank. We have a nozzle so we can control the flow or turn it off depending on what we're doing. Again, everything has these unions so we can take it apart and clean it. The feeding tubes we clean pretty frequently, I would say every month, because they do get kind of gross. And so when the standpipe is in place and the back valve is open underneath, the algae flows in, and then, as it fills up, obviously it overflows. And so some of the algae in the older water go onto the floor. So you don't have overflowing tanks because the standpipe is cut below the level of the tank. So yeah, everything in this room is 68 degrees. We have these nozzles above the tank are for aeration. We have vinyl hoses and air stones that hang down in each tank. They also have valves on them to cut back the aeration if you don't want it super strong. And that's our air pump right there that supplies 6 of our tanks. We don't need a very big air pump because these tanks are not very deep. And every decision that we make in the hatchery, we try to pick items that are as quiet as possible so that we can preserve our ears and also hear each other, while we're working together. If you are not able to plumb your system with taking the parts apart, and cleaning them that way, we do have a few areas in our hatchery that need a little bit of different attention. So one line that we have from one end of the hatchery to the other that pumps our algae into this room, what we do on a weekly basis is we put bleach water through it and let it sit overnight to sterilize it, and then flush it out with thiosulfate water to neutralize it. So there are some things that we need to do to clean some of the lines that are a little bit different than taking it apart every week, because sometimes that's just not feasible. So I know this looks crazy, but this is what our tanks look like completely disassembled at the end of the season. You can see there's multiple parts, but it makes it easier to clean and put back together. So I'll add a picture of everything looking nice and assembled so you can get an idea of how it looks. This is an example of our 100-gallon larval conical. We have 10 of these. This is what they look like under the tank stand. They just have a simple valve. These are 1-inch valves that are usually in the closed position, obviously when the tank is full and there are larvae in there. And they're situated just off the floor so that we can fit sieves and basins underneath when we're draining to collect the larval shellfish. Again, everything is set up so that it drains directly on the floor with these floor drains that we have that flow out into the harbor. So these tanks are fiberglass. We've used plastic before, or poly tanks, I guess, and they work pretty good, but they scratch up easily. So fiberglass seems to be like a little more cleaner for us. And so we just have air lines that go into the center of each tank. These are 0.45 micrometer air filters that we have on here with an air control valve. And then at the end, we typically have an air stone, but since we're shut down, we don't have one right now. So we have the air stones sit just off of the bottom. We don't have them on the bottom because we don't want to stir up anything. You can see there's the drain with it's a 1-inch. So if you wanted to be redundant, you could put a 1-inch PVC pipe in there for a standpipe. if you weren't adding, you know, a bunch of algae or water or something like that, or if you had a leak, you could add a standpipe just to be extra safe. This is an example of redundancy when we do use these flex hoses to fill tanks that are coming from the main tank. If we feel that the flex hoses aren't as clean as they need to be, we often add a 1 micron bag at the end just as safety, just to kind of ensure that everything stays as clean as possible and things stay out of the tanks in case there was something growing in the tube. This is our outdoor flow through system. It's actually disassembled. These are our upweller tanks. They can also be converted to downwellers, but we just pump in water from the outside here, and it comes up, and then these usually have elbows that go into the tank, and you can control the flow here. So the water comes in, and then it can either go out through the trough or it can go out through a standpipe. So again, redundancy. Yeah, so this is our flow through system that we use for the larger shellfish with the cylinders if needed, or they can go directly into the tank depending on what we're doing.
And that's a brief summary of our plumbing. If you guys have any specific questions about anything, feel free to shoot me an email. It's triley@nantucket-ma.gov.
And there's Tara in a car, probably at a rest stop in Maine somewhere.
I'm actually driving. Well, I'm not
Okay.
driving, but a family member's driving.
So Guy, the students currently are in the middle of their semester projects, so they might have some questions about that, or they just might have some more questions about the program in Nantucket or scallops. That I read recently that, was it last week or the week before, you discovered like this enormous scallop bed in
Yeah,
Nantucket?
we did. Pretty exciting.
Can you tell us about it?
Sure. Part of our stock enhancement program that we started in 2010 involves releasing larval bay scallops into our harbors around Nantucket. And we've been doing it, like I said, for the past 11 years. And sometimes, you know, we have really good recruitment, and sometimes, you know, it's impossible to find the scallops. It just kind of depends on the conditions and everything that's going on. But we did one of our largest larval releases in Nantucket Harbor, which is on the west end of the island. It was in July. And so we were doing our surveys in October, and we came across a large seed set. And so that was really exciting for us. It's about the size of about 35 football fields. So that's a huge amount. And so we were doing a lot of diving surveys.
Uh-oh.
Hear me?
Now I can, but we didn't
Okay.
much for the last
Oh.
like 2 minutes. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Where did I leave off? So we found
That
this.
you found the 35, about the size
Right.
of 35 football fields, and then I kind of lost you.
Okay, so the densities were really thick. They were in between 25 and 50 scallops per square meter. And they're all uniform in size. They're all around 45 millimeters. So usually when we find a seed set that's very uniform like that, it usually indicates that it came from a specific spawning event. Otherwise you find like multiple sizes. And so that was really cool because it lined up with the release that we did. And it was in the area where we did it. So right now what we're trying to do is decide how we're going to manage the seed population because the densities are so thick. If we were to leave them, they would probably not grow as well being that thick in the harbor. And so we're talking about thinning them out in March and spreading them around a little bit. And then, so for right now, we're just going to monitor them to make sure that, you know, they survive the winter. and that with our northeast winds and stuff that we get, that they don't blow into the channel and need, some sort of rescue or assistance or that sort of thing. So that's what we're working on this winter while the fishery is going on. So it's a good thing to have. We also did releases on the other side of the island that they did not take. We haven't found hardly any seed at all, and that's been a little puzzling to us, I guess. And so it's nice to have this gift on the other side of the island that will probably equate, if they all survive, it could be anywhere from 11,000 to 20,000 bushels next commercial season, which would be very good because it's very rare in the past like 4 or 5 years that we've made it above 8,000 bushels. So knowing that this is already there is pretty awesome.
And Tara, the value of that by bushel, I mean, right now, what the rates are now?
So right now the fishermen are getting about in between $22 and $25 a pound. They're getting paid that. And I know retail on Nantucket, it's $35 to $40 a pound in the seafood markets. And we've gotten a few texts. There's a place in New York that's selling them for $80 a pound and a place in Greenwich that is like $65 a pound, which is crazy to me. But I mean, I guess in a season where the supply is limited, people want their Nantucket bay scallops.
Right. And so that's typically how many pounds in a bushel? Like 4 or?
It varies from year to year, but we've gotten as many as 8 pounds in a bushel. So our limit on Nantucket per commercial permit is 5 bushels. So you can, I would say anywhere in between like 32 to 40 pounds, depending on, and they're cutting very well. They're very big this year. So I think that the weights are good and the fishermen are probably doing pretty awesome considering that the supply is low.
That's nice to hear. So, folks, you guys have Tara, I don't know for how long, because we've got her and connected in coverage. Any questions for Tara about the program in Nantucket, about oysters, any type of shellfish aquaculture, any random questions about your projects that she could help you with? And nothing's a weird question here, so take advantage.
I love weird questions.
Uh-oh. Finbar, you look like you might have one.
Okay, yeah, absolutely. So I was a little late to this meeting. I couldn't get in earlier, but so when you're how is it that you're kind of estimating these numbers, and are these in the wild or are these in fisheries that you're speaking of?
So if you're talking about the seed bed that we located, that is in the harbor, so it's in the wild. But we do larval releases, so stock enhancement projects around it. And the best way that we have to evaluate them is first of all, we do like these overall survey tows. So basically we have a tow line behind our boat and people with masks and snorkels on, and we get towed around the harbor to determine the borders of the seed bed so that we know like what we're looking at. And then we set buoys around the four corners or the borders or whatever. And then we go and we pick random spots within that area to dive. And we do, at each spot, we do 2 25-meter transects. And we do 1/2 meter quadrats along the transect line and collect all of the shellfish. So there's essentially, 1 meter for over the course of 50 meters that we're evaluating. And we also take down habitat data at the same time too, to determine, macroalgae type, eelgrass length, any type of fouling, sediment type, because we are interested in why, why they recruited, where they recruited. I think that information is pretty valuable to have. So we figure out the densities in different points within the large area, and then we do some estimations. So I think I got cut off when I was talking about the densities, and basically in half of the area, there were 25 per square meter, and the other half was a lot more dense. It was basically double, so about 50 per square meter. I don't know if that helps or not.
It does. That's very cool. Do you feel as if like what's more important? Because I know that you mentioned diving and being in the water and whatnot. Is it what's like the balance of what can be seen digitally from like scan and what can be seen like actually being in the water and having people dive? Is it kind of a 50-50 thing, or is it what's more helpful?
We haven't done a lot of like underwater scanning or sonar or anything like that. So the area that we're in is in 4 feet of water, and on Nantucket in October and September, the water is like crystal clear. A lot of the food is, moving out. So you can see the bottom. So visually you can kind of tell where the scallops are and where the habitat starts and stops. I think, yeah, it would be nice to like have multiple ways to determine density and locations and that sort of thing. But for now, before we used to just do diving, jump in at random points. And, that is, scallops move around. They not only do they swim, they shift a lot in the winds, especially with, shorter eelgrass, it doesn't have the same holding capacity that it used to. So, where you release scallops isn't necessarily where you're going to find them or where they're going to stay. So we started, instead of doing those random dive survey spots, we started doing the tow method where we get towed behind the boat so we can kind of cover more ground and be a lot more efficient. It's also very fun to get towed and to just see a wide array of things as you're getting towed over the harbor bottom. So yeah, I think we're constantly refining our methods and trying to figure out ways to be more efficient and also more scientific in how we determine things.
That's so cool. Thank you for sharing.
You're welcome.
It is cool. I suspect I could get a wave of volunteers to be towed for measure.
Yeah,
Right.
I know.
That sounds super fun.
It is fun.
Do you guys have other questions about what's going on the island or in general in Massachusetts in this space?
I had a question about the where they're releasing the seed for the scallop. Is there predators in that area? And if there is there any prevention of the predators killing the scallops from their seeds?
So for predators with small crabs and basically any kind of crab, that's native to Nantucket or invasive, we have conch and, various types of fish and that sort of thing. We are trying to start up a green crab program. They've worked with some of the fishermen to pot some of the green crabs and use them in some of the restaurants around to make like a culinary stock, or I don't know, just try to, find a new market for the green crab and a new place. I know that in the past, like my husband and some of the other conch fishermen have used them. They work well for bait in the conch pots as well. So that's an outlet. We used to have to ship them in from off island, which is crazy because we have so many in Nantucket now. But yeah, I would say crabs, but I don't personally think like predation is a huge part of our problem for survival of scallops and seed right now. I think we have a lot bigger problems related to water quality and recruitment, and also habitat. The habitat is pretty challenged.
And how is changing climate affecting the scallops at this moment? And then what's your anticipation in the next 5 to 10 years?
I mean, one thing that I've noticed since I've been here is that the eelgrass obviously is thinning out, and it's also, disappearing in some areas, and it's becoming shorter. And that's just due to, excess nutrients in the water and turbidity from increased boat usage and that sort of thing. So it shades out the eelgrass. And, I referenced before, we just don't have the holding capacity that we used to hold the scallops in. And I know that seems kind of weird, but we do get a lot of winds blowing from the north in the winter and winter storms. And one of the huge problems that we've had is have these giant seed populations blow up on shore and create what we call seed strandings. And so we've rescued as many as 2,000 bushels of scallops in a winter before. Those storms usually happen in October and November. And once they're on shore, you have, maybe 48 hours to get them back in the water, assuming that the tides are in your favor and all of that. And it's a ton of work and a ton of labor. And, maybe you'll get some volunteers, maybe you won't. It's not usually the best time of year because it's cold. But that has been our biggest problem, is just, we're moving into seed management because the habitat is so challenged. So now when we do our stock enhancement, we try to focus on, deeper water and areas in the middle of the harbor where we know they won't have as much for blowing up on shore.
Great. Thank you. Guys, any other questions? No?
Oh. Excuse me. I was wondering if do you deal with like in where you're observing the sea life, do you ever are you down there, like are you in Cape Cod, like Nantucket area specifically, and then also do you ever deal with off the sea?
I heard
I'm sorry, my family's being
oh, it's okay. I think I heard am I observing sea life in the actual open ocean? Is that what you're asking?
Yes, or do you ever for like off sea runs, is that ever a something you study, like to see the populations and streams and whatnot, or even freshwater?
Okay, so I'm trying to get an idea of what you're asking and understand it. So for sea runs, are you talking about like fish or shellfish populations? Can you just explain it a little bit more so I know exactly what you're asking?
So yeah, absolutely. So I'm with in around I don't know if I know that I'm familiar with around that area. There's a lot of sea runs, and that there's a lot of environmental agencies that manage it, and they check in on the fish populations and whatnot. And when I'm around there, I see a lot of wildlife as far as scallops and shellfish and whatnot go. I was wondering if that's relevant data to what you're trying to find out for anything.
I think it is relevant. I mean, we do have some fishery data that comes in, and fishery observers with some. I mean, we don't have a lot of commercial fishermen that go out of Nantucket, so there isn't a ton of reference to it, but we do have a lot of people involved in recreational and sport fishing. And so I know, like, when it comes to like the squid fishery or the fluke fishery and the draggers and stuff, people definitely pay attention because they're concerned about bycatch and just the bait fish in the area and that sort of thing. So we pay attention to that. We are a little bit isolated, I would say, because most of everything that we do is located within our sheltered harbors. So we are limited to where the eelgrass is as far as like a lot of what we do. But yeah, so I don't know if that's helpful in answering your question or not, but yeah, that's all I got for that.
Any follow-up, Finbar?
Yeah, absolutely.
No. Luke, I saw that you just got on. We've kind of showed another video of the hatchery and all of its intricacies, plumbing, I want to say, for lack of a better word. And Tara explained to us that there was a great finding of a large scallop bed. And we're just kind of wrapping up with questions. So I'm not sure if you had any follow-up questions for Tara from the last time you were on. No. 1 second.
Okay, hi. Am I on now?
Yes, you are.
I am just taking a small break from work. I wanted to see if I could catch anything interesting and cool.
Oh.
Is there going to be a recording of this as well?
Yes, it is being recorded.
Cool. I'll probably have to catch up on that, but I wanted to poke in and say hi. And sorry, can't stay for.
No, that's fine. That's fine. Great.
Cool.
All right. Anything else, guys? Any other questions for Tara while we've got her captive in the car?
There's any urchin stuff going on there.
Oh, urchin stuff. Right. We've got people pretty interested in sea urchins. Tara, you want to bring us up to speed?
I know. Yeah, I wish I had some sea urchin stuff to tell you about, but I think I mentioned last time that we're interested in playing around on our jetties and stuff, but I'm heading up to Maine right now, so I know that they're really heavy into sea urchins. So I don't know. It's something that I am interested in exploring, but we don't really have a lot going on with sea urchins on Nantucket.
Well, maybe if you come across any sea urchin aquaculture while you're up there, you'll take a quick video and ship them off to me and I'll share it.
Okay, I'll see what I can find.
We'll send her on a mission.
Yeah.
Anything else, folks?
Sorry, I'm figuring this thing out. I gotta go.
All right, bye. Wait, anything, guys? No? Well, oh, sure.
One last question. If I could just get a brief introduction of what you do, like what your exact job is, and what you out of curiosity.
Oh.
What my exact job description is? Okay, so it's evolved a lot since I applied for the job in 2009. It was listed as the town biologist, so I was in charge of like water quality, marine mammal strandings, everything. There wasn't a hatchery at the time, and so it's evolved into that. My background was in commercial shellfish, so what I'm in charge of now is running the hatchery and the shellfish restoration program for the island. I am a town employee, so my title is still town biologist, although we have expanded our program. So we have water quality specialists and, all sorts of other biologists involved now. So we are able to be a lot more concentrated. But yeah, mostly I'm in charge of everything from within the hatchery to implementing it out in the field, and then also acting as a liaison between the commercial and recreational fishermen and the town as well. We have a shellfish management plan too, and I'm in charge of implementing all of those directives that were voted on and included in the plan as well.
And since Yvonne just popped on, I thought maybe Yvonne, we have some folks that weren't on last time. Maybe you could introduce yourself and say what you do, because a lot of folks don't know that we have a field station in Nantucket, meaning UMass Boston has a field station in Nantucket. There's Yvonne.
Hi.
Hi.
Sorry, I got delayed getting on here.
Fine.
Yeah, so for those of you that weren't here last time, we have a field station that is managed by UMass Boston. It is a UMass Boston facility on Nantucket, and we've been here since the mid-60s. We have a bunkhouse and a laboratory. We sit on over 100 acres of conservation land that is on Nantucket Harbor. So we have a nice protected beach that's a cobble beach. We also have an estuary, and we have freshwater, a pond, and 2 streams on the grounds. So it's a really great place to do some pilot work. We do not have a pier though. So it's great that we have this wonderful collaboration with the hatchery because they have a phenomenal setup over there. So trying out, some of the things you guys are talking about would interest me. It would be fun to support people doing anything with algae or urchins or crabs or anything else. But really the hatchery has the facility that is the place to do those sorts of things, as well as the structures in the water. But I think it would be interesting to see, well, yeah, I'll just stop right there. Did anyone have any questions for me?
I just wanted Finbar to know that we have this great resource down in Nantucket. He's got a lot of questions and interest, and that our students are welcome to coordinate with you on how to best use the field station combined with their research and interests. And so I wanted them to see your face.
Yes, we hi Finbar. We have a website you should check out as well. And in fact, tonight I could send you an email. We have sort of a Zoom session around 4:30 that's been publicized by some of our interns up in Boston tabling. We do these periodic info sessions, both remote and in person on campus in Boston. I have one Thursday and Friday that I'm doing remotely over Zoom about opportunities and ways to get funding to do things down here. And we also have this sort of for fun movie we're showing called it's Historic Nantucket, but it's really interesting. And so we're doing that this evening. If you want to shoot me an email, I can add you to our list of communications, and I'll put my email in the chat. You can also find it on our website, which is umb.edu/Nantucket. My contact information is all over that website, as well as other information, but my email, let me make sure I spelled it right, is in the chat. So please feel free to email me anytime. And if you want to be added onto that list, I'll definitely do that. Basically, we just send out little announcements to the students about, all kinds of things related to our field station, as well as Nantucket and the courses we're running this summer, interning, using the station, things like that.
Thank you so much. Yeah, absolutely. I'll send you an email. That's great.
Great. And
Great.
yeah, oh, go ahead.
No, sorry, go ahead.
Jen, you can feel free to share that as well with your class. I could shoot you a little email about these sessions. There's an undergrad research funding opportunity that's closing out in November. And so that would be something to look at. It will fund springtime activities for students. There's some other opportunities as well, and I was going to just highlight those, and I can send out a slide if you can't make it to one of the sessions, but that deadline's coming up pretty fast, and it would cover things like travel and materials to get down here if you wanted to even come down to sort of, investigate what might be done here. I think that would work. So yeah, definitely shoot me an
That'd be
email.
great, Yvonne. Why don't you send that to me and I'll send it out to everyone.
Sure.
I know Tara's in the car, and so I want to be sure if anyone has any other questions that you have an opportunity to ask before we lose her or she signs off. So I think we're good. Tara, I really appreciate you making this work considering your schedule this week. And
Yeah, no worries. Thanks for having me. And if anyone has any follow-up questions or anything, feel free to email me. It's just triley@nantucket-ma.gov.
And thanks to all the students who showed up today. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for your questions.
Thank
So,
you, guys.
All right, I'll see you guys later.
Okay. And I'll stay on for a
Thank
few
you.
minutes in case anyone has any questions for me.
Great.
All right.
Thanks, Tara.
You guys, I'm just staying on in case anyone has questions. You don't have to stay on. You can go. And I'm going to stop the recording too. There we go.